A child's life is like a piece of paper on which every person leaves a mark. Chinese proverb. Welcome back to Ariadne's Quotes of Wisdom, episode 10. We made it back. Double digits. Yay! So today we are going to talk about a child's life and how everything that we do and say to a child affects them. And I think that we probably all feel that in our lives, and how everything that has been said to us over the years has made a difference and kind of goes into shaping who we have become. And I think that as we get older as adults, we need to take that into consideration, all the things that we say to our children and to other children and other youth that are in our lives. And we need to really think very hard about the things that we say. And sometimes it is very hard to control our own emotions when we come home. We've had a rough day at work. It's very easy to blow off steam, to accidentally, a lot of times it's accidental to take out our emotions on the children that are in our lives. And we really need to try and pause and take a breath and think about the things that we expect of children and making sure that we are implementing those exact standards as well as adults. Because how can we expect children to uphold the same standards if we can't do that ourselves? If we can't come home and make sure that if we've had a hard day at work, that, and that we're not blowing off steam at our children or getting frazzled by our children asking 1,000 questions of us and us saying, just leave me alone, just kind of off the cuff, blowing them off. But if our children did the same thing to us because they were overstimulated from school and something happened at school, somebody bullied them, somebody gave them a hard time, somebody insulted them, and they gave us attitude and backtalked us because we were nagging them to clean up their room, and we kept, reminding them, clean up your room, clean up your room, clean up your room. And they were like, okay, I'll do it later. What would we do? We would punish them, or we would, yell back at them. And what does that accomplish? All that does is that models poor behavior to them. And unfortunately, I believe that our generation kind of learned from previous generations that, our way or the highway, and, you'll do as I say. And I think that parenting techniques have kind of come a long way. And I think that we've kind of learned that we need to be a little more gentle with our children and expect things a little bit differently of them. There is a fine line to make sure that they don't take advantage of that and that they don't manipulate the adults in their lives as well. But we really need to be careful about the things that we say to our children, because that becomes the tape that goes on and on and on in their minds for the rest of their lives. And once you put something down on paper, even if it's on pen by pencil, you can erase it, but you can still see that mark there. Even if you erase something on a piece of paper, if you look very closely, you can still see it. If you write over it, it can still be seen. And that's exactly what happens, that even if a child forgets things that were said to them, that were mean, that were harsh, that were cruel, even if those words were supplanted by something else, it is still there. It is still buried under the good things that were said. And it still had some kind of a raw effect at some point in their life. And it can sometimes be replaced by other feelings and by other words and by other narrative. But I really think that the feeling that it creates a physiological response, and it creates kind of a chain of events of a way that a child might respond in the future to a similar situation, or just even might have a knee-jerk reaction to a similar situation. I kind of talked in a previous episode too about, when somebody has a response, a traumatic response to something, and how it kind of goes on to shape people's lives. And it's the same kind of situation, that you come up with coping mechanisms and the effect that it will have later on in life. And sometimes it might not be uncovered until far later, but we really need to consider our words very, very carefully and stop for a moment and not be so quick to react to everything. There needs to be space between the moment that a thought enters our head and a feeling enters us, between that time and the time that we react and the time that we say something, or the time that we act upon that feeling or that thought. That space in between, that pause, that breath, can make a world of difference. That behavior that comes out, and this is something that's learned through a psychological method, cognitive behavior therapy, that learning how to retrain the way that you behave based on your thoughts and feelings, which are things that, sometimes those kind of things can't be changed, but what can be changed is the behavior and the way that you react. But there needs to be a pause. And we need to think about that and the impact that what we say in that moment, the effect that it can have on our children, and thus the effect that it can, the reverberating effect, the resonating effect that it can then have on us down the line, because what we put into our children can come back to us too. And it just becomes this cycle, because if we react a certain way to them, we explode, we take something out on them, in turn, their response down the line just kind of comes back to us, because then they just start getting all this anger built up inside them, and they wind up coming back to us, which just triggers more anger and animosity in us. And then it just keeps cycling around and around. So we need to be very careful. Even though things can be erased on paper, things can be drawn over, painted over, it can't be taken back. So really make sure that you take that moment, think really hard before you react, before you say words, before you put any kind of negative behavior onto the children, because it will also affect you as well as others in life as well. Fairly short and sweet for today, but please think about that the next time your child has some kind of behavior or words that you're not very happy with, and that might start to change the wheel. Have a wonderful day.